And we're back for some more NBA observations right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. This is Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for joining us. And of course, we wouldn't be NBA observing without a great NBA analyst. And it is the guy who's here on a regular basis and has been for quite some time now. And truly appreciate, when you thank things as far as at the end of the year, I truly thank him for coming on board and asking to do this on a regular basis. He is out of the Swab Report and the New Century Press. It is, of course, Calif Poncy. Calif, great to have you back, and happy holidays and a happy and blessed new year to you.
Yeah, you too. No, it's been great. I'm glad that I got your message on LinkedIn a few months back, and here we are now. All this time later, it's been good, and I hope your holidays went well too, and ready to get down to business here.
Outside of the basketball element, although I actually, as we say on the show behind the scenes, it's always better for our show since we lose, since they want to hear me rant and Joe yell. So be that as it may, it worked out better with one of our better ratings of this period of time. So I'll leave it at that. But with the NBA now heading into 2026 here in just a matter of days, and LeBron James heading into his age 41 year, I want to go ahead and talk about what's going on in the NBA. I know that OKC and San Antonio, that deal as far as have they got their number. I know I discussed that with you. I've discussed that with Legend, and I've discussed it also on the Lakers Fast Break. So I wanted to pivot away for just this period of time because I know that there still is concerns in OKC. But San Antonio, in only the way the NBA can, the next game loses to the Jazz at home. So I was like, what are we missing here? But then again, Denver lost at Orlando, and Minnesota lost to Brooklyn at home on that same day, I believe. So yeah, it was just a kind of a mess with, you see a flaw in OKC to take advantage of, and they don't take advantage of it. But be that as it may, things in the NBA are looking okay and looking pretty decent as they head into 2026 before we get into the subjects that we're supposed to be talking on topic today.
Yeah, no, I mean it's shaping up to be a pretty good year, especially in the West. I mean, obviously we thought coming into the year maybe it would be a foursome with the Thunder, Houston, Lakers, and Denver, and now I think San Antonio has maybe replaced the Lakers in that conversation as of now. So that, I mean, just the monitoring of those, only two of those teams can make the conference finals. Only one of them can make the finals. So, I think monitoring what goes on with those teams is interesting. And then something that I'm sure maybe we'll talk about a little bit, Boston being able to stay as good as they've been with these just ever persistent rumors of Jason Tatum coming back later in the season. I think that could end up being a pretty interesting subplot to watch in an Eastern Conference. No one really has seemingly taken a really firm grasp of. Just when we think maybe it looks like it's Detroit and New York, Detroit got just destroyed by the Clippers last night. So it just seems like no one's really fully revealing themselves out east like they are in the West, and Boston's just hovering right there at the 3 seed without Jason Tatum.
We will be talking about the Clippers, and also want to throw in the Bucks. If those two teams can bring themselves back. Are these the two zombie teams for 2026? Using was it Usher? I think Back to Life. Back to Life. That type of saw from one of his songs. But anyways, can those two teams resurrect their seasons? We'll talk about that on the show as well. Plus, you wanted to talk about Trey Young. I know that I've talked to Legend, who's a avid Warriors and Hawks follower, and the Trey Young saga for him living in the Georgia area continues. So we'll go ahead and discuss that as well. But yeah, going into 2026, it looks pretty competitive. Again, it does not look like the total runaway, but we are 15 to 20 win streak from OKC away from getting right back to where we started, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think the maybe the talks of OKC's demise were maybe a bit exaggerated there for a few days, just as it goes. When you win that many games, when you lose games, it's going to feel like a bigger deal. And especially when it was just to one team who seems like they're going to be a challenge, not only now, but going forward for the next, however long, 5 to 10 years. It seems like those teams are just destined to maybe clash more than once in the playoffs. So, I mean, it's been interesting, but in terms of, I mean, I still think this team's going to win at least as many games as they did last year at 68. Um, I still would think they'd win 70. I think maybe the record that was a talking point there for a while. I think maybe the record is a little bit far fetched after that little stretch, but I still do think this is going to be a 70 win team. Jalen Williams has really struggled pretty mightily since he came back from his wrist injury, and I expect that to get better as time goes on, not worse. And SGA is still playing at a super high level. Chet Holmgren, the offense comes and goes, but overall he's playing at a really high, probably near all NBA level. And then obviously the OKC cast of role players, while a little unreliable from three, always shows up on the defensive end. So I don't think there's any reason really to worry about their merit as a consistent title contender or anything like that. I think we're going to see this team really snap back, and yeah, maybe they will go on a 17-game win streak again.
Once again, it is Calif Poncy from the New Century Press and also as well the Suave Report along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for watching, listening. Truly appreciate you checking out some NBA observations. So with that, again, all the spotlight on teams like the Lakers, OKC, and some others in the Western Conference, plus also in the East, the New York Knicks, the rise of the New York Knicks as they continue on their journey. They're now just a game and a half behind Detroit after Detroit's fall to the Kawhi Clippers and his 55 points. He scored 51 at the end of three quarters. Thought he was going to do more, but just kind of, after that. But we want to talk about some under the radar teams that have your eye with some observations, my friend. So I'll start you off with you first. Who are the teams? What teams are under the radar that people need to know a little bit more about heading into 2026?
So I'll start in the West, and I'll go with Phoenix just there at that 7th seed. This is a team that everybody coming into the season, rightfully, I think had kind of written off, and we're talking about how these Rockets picks are just going to be worth their weight in gold, of these Phoenix picks that they have. And quietly, Phoenix really kind of seems like they maybe found an identity for themselves in the midst of their disaster with the Kevin Durant trade and retrade. And obviously the Bradley Beal saga was just an unmitigated failure for everyone involved. But I mean, it seems like this of Dylan Brooks seems crucial to this, and he has his warts as a player. I know you guys in LA probably aren't the biggest fans of him, but he clearly also brings an identity. He brings a toughness that's just infectious to the rest of his team. You saw this in Memphis. So they've never really been the same identity-wise since he left. You saw this in Houston. Fortunately, they've maintained. And now Phoenix really, I think, is picking up right there. Mark Williams has been able to stay healthy, which has always been the key for him. And when he's healthy, he's a really impactful big man in this league. Seems like getting Devin Booker back with just the main focus of the offense all the time has really paid benefits for them. And yeah, I mean, I just think this is a team that makes sense. They have a center rotation, and not including Kaman Malawach, who they did draft, and everyone knew he was a bit of a project, but I do think he's even a little bit farther behind than everyone realized there with the top 10 pick. But I mean, 18 and 13 in the West, regardless of your strength of schedule, regardless of any of that, that's nothing to sneeze at, because they've had hard games playing in the Western Conference. So I just want to make sure they get their time in the sun, no pun intended. They're really unlikely to maybe win more than one or two playoff games with how loaded talent-wise the top of the Western Conference is. But I think it's pretty commendable that without having any resources to spend, they seemingly have found a way to really revitalize an identity and build something that Devin Booker maybe isn't just going to immediately want out as soon as that next contract kicks in. He maybe has some reason to stick around there.
It's been pretty solid for them, and Brooks has been a great culture individual there as far as changing the culture for the more tough attitude there. And obviously his feisty nature has gotten a lot of ire, especially here in Laker Town. But I will say for the first part, it works. Houston, he enjoyed his time in Houston because he wasn't there that long. but the longer it goes, the more strained it gets. Just ask
Mhm.
Memphis, which was
Oh,
tired
yeah.
of its act, after especially after the poke the bear playoff series against LeBron and the Lakers. So that obviously did not matriculate well over the course of time. But right now, it's obviously what they needed, and right now he provides an area of toughness that they sorely need. Those type of guys, I put him in that almost in that echelon with Draymond Green, although he's in a class by himself. Is when they straddle the line of being, the guy that really brings that time of toughness culture to the team, where you straddle that line to where it just falls on deaf ears or becomes an annoyance. And right now for Phoenix, it's on the good side, and let's hope it stays that way because again, they are exceeding expectations finally in the Matt Ishbia area in the Matt Ishbia era. They're still not the cheapest team in the NBA, but they do look like they have a little bit of a future, which is something they didn't have this time last year.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like at a point last offseason, the most realistic, plausible goal for Phoenix was maybe just to make sure the picks they had going out the door didn't become top five, like Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum type picks for their team. That really seemed like a pretty realistic goal to set for them. And the fact that they've now done that really, um, I've pretty quietly, like I just think that because of the teams at the top of the West and the emergence of Wembanyama and and how dominant Oklahoma City is, and even like how good Houston has been, and the Lakers always being in the limelight as they are. Like I just think they've really rightfully flown under the radar, and I just want to make sure that in a lot of years where the West maybe wasn't near as talented as it is this year, they would probably be up there in that 4 or 5 range because they are a team that makes a lot of sense. They are a team that really we've seen a ton of these throughout NBA history, and it works to be a pretty good regular season team. You have a dominant on-ball scorer, has the ball a lot, and you surround him with good defenders and capable outside shooters, and they did some good work finding guys like a Jordan Goodwin, formerly of the Lakers. And I just think that this is a team that makes a lot of sense that I think is not going to be an overly daunting playoff threat, but I do think that they're a pretty good team. And if we want to have this discussion that we're wanting to have today, I think they're at the top of the list for me. Now, who did you have at the top of yours, or was it the same
It
same
would
team?
be well, they're up there. Absolutely. They're up there for me. But for me as well, in the East, I'll go since you went to the West first. I'm going to go to the East, and the one team under the radar that I think people are overlooking and don't talk about much is the Toronto Raptors at 19 and 14. Have not had the best 10-game span like the Lakers. It's been under 500, but they're still fourth place in the Eastern Conference. Heading into 2026, they have a chance still to go ahead and move by the Celtics here before the year's up. So we can see how that happens. But they've had some injury woes. RJ Barrett has been hurt as of late, so that has been a something that's been talked about. And it's funny because RJ Barrett, who who was considered trade bait, who was considered someone that wasn't a valued part of that starting rotation after they signed him to that contract, seems to be a really solid player
Mhm.
and someone who could play well and could be a good starter for almost any team out there. So his absence was certainly missed in recent games, but with Scotty Barnes still going out there, he's playing. I don't want to say that he's playing at an all-star level, but he's playing at times really close to that right now. 19, 8, and 5. Not too bad for the kid. Again, his shooting efficiency numbers are not great, but he is how should I say this? I always go back to what my friend Rafael Barlow said when he went on the air on a nationally syndicated show during the NBA draft when he was drafted. He said, "You don't draft a glue guy at number 5." And I understand his reasoning at that time, but Scotty Barnes has been that glue guy for Toronto. And while he hasn't maybe stepped up to maybe what Cade Cunningham or even a notch below as far as a star status, he's still been pretty darn solid, and I still think he has room to grow him as well.
Yeah, I think with Scotty Barnes, throughout his career, he's kind of frustrated me because he does all the things he does a ton of things that I think are really conducive to winning. He
Mhm.
is, when he's really locked in, he's a really good defensive player.
Yep.
He's a really good ball mover. He's unselfish. The efficiency isn't there, like you've said, but I also think to give him some relief on that, like that's just not a team that's really, for all their strengths. And I'm glad you brought them up because they were probably my one or two in the East as well.
Mhm.
But that's just not a team that's really set up to get someone easy shots. Like it's just a lot of guys who like to go get their own. It's not a ton of really plus playmaking type of guys on that team. And I would say he probably is the best playmaker on that team of any of their kind of key nucleus, at least.
And
And
well,
so,
he just had an amazing game, 23, 25 rebounds and 10 assists to get the win over the Warriors.
yeah. So, I mean, I think I'd be willing to say he's playing at an all-star level. Like, I think he brings enough defensively. This new all-star format is going to complicate everything, but I think for the sake of everyone's sanity, we should probably just say historically, is he playing at an all-star status? And with where their records at, I think he is clearly the best player on that team, and I think he should. I think he would deserve a historical all-star nod. But yeah, I mean, other than him, that's just a team that doesn't make a ton of sense offensively to me. Now, defensively, you see it, right? It's big guys, it's positional size. Pirtle, I kind of panned him because his contract is really bad in my opinion, but I do think that he is a really good rim defender for them.
Serviceable, but you don't pay that kind of money for
Yes.
serviceable.
Yeah, and so overall, I mean, yeah, they're a bit, they're just honestly pretty confusing to me because they do make such little sense to me offensively, but whatever they're doing, it's working. And now we're a pretty good chunk of the way into the season. And now, while they have gone through a little bit of yeah, I mean, like you said, they're, what are they, 4-6 in their last 10, but so they're not maybe playing at the level they were earlier in the season. But I do think this is pretty clearly a team that's going to be dangerous in the first round of the playoffs in the East.
Once again, it is Caleb Poncy. Please go ahead and support him today at the New Century Press and the Swab Report. Got some great articles at the Swab Report, including on the OKC Thunder and, of course, the LA Clippers. Wanted to go ahead and mention as well mine, and then I'll send it over for your under the radar pick. I'll go back to the West this time around, and I know this sounds crazy. How could a team under 500 be one of those under the radar teams? But you know what? I'm going to go the way of Salt Lake City and Utah because Utah was picked almost universally in my panelists as far as I got over the course of the preseason. And I got, think 13, 15, almost universally. We picked Utah to be last in the Western Conference. So right now, sitting out just outside the play-in, a half game outside the play-in, with a victory in hand over the San Antonio Spurs. I consider that a great win for them. Now they can't win against teams in their own division. They've gotten pummeled there, but you take that out of the equation, and they've been pretty competitive everywhere else. Lauri Markkanen, he's just been pretty darn good. Back to his old self after a year, kind of like his shot and his health being away. They've also got established themselves a point guard in Keontae George, excuse me. Those two have really established themselves as a 1-2 punch. And again, even with Walker Kessler out of the lineup for the entire year, they have resurrected Yusuf Nurkic to be a pretty solid center going forward as well. Now, I expect it to change because I expect them to be a seller at the trade deadline based on what the Angels track history is all about. But there could be some moves in the making with Markkanen, Nurkic, Svi Mihailik that could necessitate that difference in record. But for now, I see it as a surprise that they're pretty much have a chance to get a shot to be in the plan in the Western Conference.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're going to be a really interesting team to monitor down the stretch because, yeah, I mean, they're right now a half game out of the play-in. But that last play-in spot seems like it's kind of going to be up for grabs for a lot of different teams, including the surging Clippers that we're going to talk about a little later.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I mean, it's going to be really interesting because the Thunder have their first round pick, shocker to no one whenever someone says that statement, and it's top 8 protected. And the thing with that, the picks protections on that is the Thunder have had it the last 2 or 3 years. And if they don't get it this year, it just goes away. Like the Jazz don't owe them second round picks, they don't owe them anything. It just goes completely away. So I'll be interested to see if maybe they want to start chasing that come later in the season. But I mean, with the level that Markkanen's playing at, like Keontae George has taken a little leap here. They do have some other guys like Ace Bailey recently finally moved into the starting lineup. I saw. So I mean, they're an exciting team to watch with a lot of young, talented guys, and then just a bona fide all-star level scorer at this point in Lauri Markkanen. So I'd agree that they're an interesting one to watch, and they've definitely overachieved. I mean, they were pretty universally, yeah. I mean, the Pelicans, like if you just look straight at the rosters, the Pelicans, Kings, Clippers, and Dallas, who are all behind them, all easily have more maybe recognizable names and more surefire talent. But here we are, they're ahead of and well ahead of some of those teams at this point. So I think the Jazz are going to be interesting just to see what they want to do, because if they want to push for the play-in, I think they have a chance to land that last play-in spot. But if they want to maybe secure one more bite at that first-round pick apple, they're going to have to maybe go the other way.
So who is your other under-the-radar team you want to talk about right now heading into 2026?
So my second one also, I was between two, and I'll go with my one in the West. So the one that didn't quite make the cut for me was Philly, just because I think they were a pretty polarizing team coming into the year. You either really thought maybe Embiid's going to be healthy and they'll be fine this year, or maybe you thought the other way where
they were my pick. They were my pick last season to win the title. And this year I was like, all hands off. Was like, wait, no, I want nothing to do with the Philadelphia 76ers because I have no idea where they're at. So I think I picked them like 5th or 6th just because it was like, throw a dart at a dartboard.
Yeah.
That's where it landed. So, yeah, that one was crazy.
Yeah, so maybe where they're at in the standings right now at 6th in the East isn't particularly shocking, but I feel like the way they've gotten there has been a little surprising because Paul George missed a big chunk of time. Embiid, as I think he's just going to be for the rest of his career, has just kind of been in and out, unreliable. And it's really been the emergence of Tyrese Maxey as like a true all-NBA level guard. I mean, OKC ended up handling Philly last night and winning that game pretty handily by the end, but it was a battle for 3 quarters. And it was because Maxey was just unstoppable, even against a team with the perimeter defenders that OKC has. He just was making everything. So, I mean, they have a sure star with him. And then, obviously, Edgecombe has slowed down. But at the beginning of the season, Edgecombe really came out at a higher level than anyone really expected him to be at. So I did want to give them some mention. But my last team was actually Memphis because they're right here at 9. Everything, if you just maybe don't look at the record and just like talk about the talking points of them this season, it feels like everything has gone wrong. They had an infight between their coach and star player 5 games into the season. Their star player has missed a big chunk of time. They always have to worry about Jaren Jackson fouling out or missing games, which he's done a little bit better job of staying healthy this year, but he does still like to foul in silly ways a lot. And yet here they are right at 9. And I think a lot of that's because of Cedric Coward playing so well as a rookie. I think he really helped them at the start of the season. And then, Jaren Jackson just kind of continues to be one of the more kind of tough to judge players in the league because when he plays, they just kind of win games, but you also just get the feeling that he can't really be a team's best player if they want to be taken particularly seriously to win anything in the playoffs. So, they're 6-4 in their last 10. They lost their last game. But they are, you brought up Utah's division record earlier. Memphis is pretty good in their division right now at 4-10. They're good in Memphis at 10-4, and they really struggle on the road. They're 6-12. So when they're at home, they're a tough team to beat, and that's really without John Morant for a lot of the season. And when he does play, it's been a circus most of the time for one reason or another. So I just wanted to, those are 2 teams who in a little different fashion maybe aren't particularly far off where we thought in the standings, but I think the way in which they've gotten to where they're at is pretty interesting.
I will mention when it comes to the Memphis Grizzlies, just don't have them play the Washington Wizards because they've lost them 2 times in 10 days. But outside of that, like you said, they are a team that's creeping right on the outside, right there in the play-in. So if they go on any type of run, you never know. They could creep up on some teams like on the back end, like LA, Minnesota, and also as well Phoenix and Golden State. So they got to be on the lookout. I'll say this about Triple J. He signed that mega contract over the summer. I had a discussion, a back and forth with Joe because we disagree on things. I see him as probably a modern day version of Rasheed Wallace or Robert Ory,
Hmm.
as someone who probably plays to his full potential when it matters the most in the playoffs, but during the regular season always leaves you wanting more. But has that myriad of talent. They have those myriad of skills. Those guys, both 6'10", 6'11" individuals. Both they could play 3, 4 positions on the floor in their youth. They could stretch out the floor to 3 with relative ease, and then they could also seem like they just were cruising at times throughout the season, waiting for their big moment to step up at their big plateau. And both did, with both being world champions. I see him somewhat in a modern day realm on that. And came back and me. It's like, well, he's won defensive player of the year. Blocking shots when you're 7 feet tall with the kind of athleticism he has at that period of time when he won it shouldn't have been the most amazing thing in the world. I'll leave it at that and put it to that. But the game like he had the other day, 24, 9, and 5 blocks, he does that every now and then. He
Hmm.
teases you with that now and then, but he doesn't sustain it like we see from the great players out there like Wemby or others, or you name it. He just doesn't give you those outstanding eye-popping performances consistently like you think he should every time he steps out on the court.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have disagreed on this, but you've talked a lot about him going to San Antonio for De'Aaron Fox maybe down the line. I agree on the premise that I think where he's best suited is on in a different team and maybe a more winning, consistent culture where he doesn't have to really masquerade as the best player all that often. Now he can, he's talented enough, like you said the other night, 24-9, 5 blocks. He has these moments of greatness where you think, well, why can't a team be a playoff team with him as their best guy consistently? But as the season goes on, it just doesn't feel sustainable offensively for him to maybe be your primary engine. I'm honestly just to the point with San Antonio where I think them messing with what they have, this 3 guard lineup just seems to be working for them together. They're all so low turnover. They're so athletic and dynamic getting to the rim. I think I'd keep it together as of right now. But one place I'd love to see him and maybe a few other maybe forward types like this, I just think him in Detroit, going back to Rasheed Wallace, I think he in Detroit makes a lot of sense, especially with that floor spacing capability. If that was able to be organized somehow down the line, but his
Him and
contract is so
Jalen
big.
Duren would be scary.
Exactly. So I think that makes a ton of sense. But with his contract situation, he's going to be really hard to move, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, so he's an interesting player and they're an interesting team. But I do want to give him a little. He's just hard to evaluate for me. He's a hard player to judge because like during the you say what you like during the playoffs you'd think he'd rise, but they've been in playoff situations and it's kind of gone the other way sometimes. Like last year against OKC, he just really played poorly in the playoffs, and I understand that was a 1-versus-8 situation, but I don't know. So I do think that he maybe has a tune to play that we're just not going to be able to see while he's in this Memphis situation. And it's just kind of going to be hypothetical until he does it. But I do think he's going to be a player who really contributes to a winning team one day down the line.
Well, heading into our next subject, but that was actually really interesting. Again, under the radar teams, and we'll see how these under the radar teams perform as time goes on, or as it gets close to the end of the season. Maybe there are some new under the radar teams that people are just forgetting about. That oh, they're third place in the Western Conference, or they're fourth place in the Eastern Conference, but they've been on a 7-game win streak. Oh, we got to keep an eye out for them. If there are any other under the radar teams that we notice is not getting that kind of love from national media, we'll go ahead and keep on it with our NBA observations indeed. But continuing some observations, I wanted to go ahead and point out something you said, which I've talked about with Legend on the Lakers Fast Break post game shows of note of recently, and that is Trey Young, the Atlanta Hawks. That situation has, unfortunately, they're not under the radar. They're under the 500 mark right now,
Mm-hmm.
and that is well below expectations. Kristaps Porzingis with his mysterious illnesses again popping up. He's supposed to be back in the lineup on Tuesday. We'll see how he is and how long he'll stay out there. But ever since Trey Young came back to the lineup, they actually had, before he did, they actually had a sense of solidity to
Yeah.
their both their offense and their defense primarily. Trey Young has come back and it's gotten solid numbers, 20 and 10, as far as decent shooting. Everything looks great on paper, but then you look at what the rest of the team is doing upon his return, and offensively, it doesn't look as cohesive at the eye test. Offensively, it doesn't look as cohesive on the numbers test, but more importantly, the defense has taken a turn south, and so has the record. So, with that, my friend, just like we're experiencing here with the heated fan base on Austin Reaves, who will be out a month with his calf strain but his defense really not endearing himself, and it's so funny because again, he is an undrafted player. He has now put him in a position where he's now a top 10 voted in the All-Star voting. He's an undrafted player.
Mm-hmm.
He has his faults. That's why he wasn't drafted in the first place. But I understand people maybe frowning on trying to commit to him long term, but that's a Lakers story as someone who might be the marquee free agent this summer. Trey Young could also be the another marquee free agent this summer if he so chooses to. Both like him and Austin Reeves, they do have a player option they can decline. What do you think is the situation there with Trey Young right now in Atlanta? Because when I talked to Legend, he thinks Atlanta should be open to a possible change of scenery for Trey Young.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Stein, I think, reported that today. Finally, like that Atlanta would be open to listening, which they probably should have been for the last 18 months or so. But it seems like maybe they're finally starting to put out into the public that they would be ready for an opportunity to move on if one worthy presented itself. And so, I just wanted to kind of go through because I think this is a pretty interesting exercise. There's just not a lot of teams for him. Like Brooklyn is playing shocking, right? We should have mentioned them in the last one. Like Brooklyn, I think is 7-3 in their last 10. Like Brooklyn's playing really well right now, but they have assets, and I think he makes some on the surface he would make some sense there. But the reason they're playing so well is because I want to say over the last month or so they have the number one defense in the NBA. Like they're just an elite defensive team. And I saw someone tweet out, I apologize, I don't remember who it is, but earlier today, just about an hour ago, they asked Jordi Fernandez about that, and he said, well, it's mostly just in relation to our positional size. Like we just have huge players everywhere. And that's not Trey Young. Trey Young is not a huge player. He is very small. He's slight. He's never going to be even a below average defensive player. He's just always going to be a bad defensive player. That's just kind of
Quinn Snyder or Jordi Fernandez?
Jordi Fernandez in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant we were talking about Atlanta as far as with Quinn Snyder. My bad.
Yeah, in Brooklyn they've had the best defense in the league the last month,
yes,
and someone asked him about it, and he pointed a lot of that to their positional size. They just have big players up and down the lineup.
Absolutely, with Sharp and Claxton going it right there. Yeah, just a lot of positional wing size. But we've mocked those first round draft choices. The other players that are out there, especially with MPJ scoring at will, he's been one of the hottest players in the last month as well.
Yeah, so there's just not, and so they may make sense, but if they want to stick to that identity that they're building with Jordi Fernandez, he just doesn't make sense there. He's not going to ever be able to hold up on that end of the floor, and he does not have good positional size, which that's a lot of what OKC's philosophy has been. Is overall, like with Chet, they were a poor rebounding team before Hartenstein got there. But positionally, they all are really long and really big. Like they maybe didn't have the elite, super tall big guy that was a physical force before Hartenstein, but they always like Shea's 6'6", Jalen Williams is 6'6", Lou Dort can guard up to 6'10" or 6'9", so his size is incredibly relevant. And Chet is 7'1", 7'2". They have these huge players, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to – that just makes sense in basketball. You want the tallest, most skilled players you can have. It's not overly complex, really. But I think Brooklyn is probably starting to maybe do that as well. Other teams you'd look at, like you got to look at just the teams who are in desperate need of a star for him, I think, like Washington. But what's the point of that for Washington? Are they going to be good? Because I don't know what the point for that for Washington would be. The one that always sticks out in all these for anyone is Sacramento, because they're just the Kings. They have tradable contracts. They need a point guard. Russell Westbrook's been the best point guard on their team this season. And they could make it work draft pick wise, where if Atlanta wanted a pick back, Atlanta's just not going to get a ton back because he's not incredibly valuable on the open market, or as someone you have to likely pay at least $35-40 million a year in this new cap climate. But so Sacramento makes some sense. Before this little surge, I thought the Clippers maybe made a little bit of sense just to maybe try something. But now that they're playing well, I don't, with everyone healthy other than Zubats, I don't know that they would want to get into that. So my main curiosity here was just who do you think are some teams that could even make sense for him to go to if Atlanta does want to move him, which it seems like maybe they want to.
Yeah, like you said, better late than never, right? And it's the same thing. They have to ask themselves the same question that the LA Lakers do. If they don't want to commit, if they say, you know what, they sit in their boardroom in Atlanta and the Lakers sit in their boardroom in El Segundo, they say, okay, do we let this player walk for nothing? Do we commit to this player? Do we not? We got to make a decision. We got to make the choice. And if the choice is trade that individual, like with Austin Reaves, Trey Young is definitely going to be. It's funny because those are the two realistically marquee free agents of next summer, which is not a great summer for free agency, but both are in a very similar situation, Caleb, because of their glaring weaknesses on the defensive end. But with that, a player or a team that I could see going as far as for Trey Young, how about the Minnesota Timberwolves? Could you see a move there as far as them moving him to Minnesota, as far as it's concerned, possibly for Rudy Gobert for one bad contract with another?
I just think at their root, Minnesota wants to be a defensive team.
Okay.
And I think their roster reflects that. Anthony Edwards, when he wants to, can be a really high level defender. McDaniels, Gobert, Randall comes and goes. I think maybe a Randall swap there makes a little bit more sense than a Gobert swap.
I will just tell you that in the old trade machine, because that's the Bible. If once it's in the trade machine, you can pretty much bank on it. Uh, Gobert and Conley fit almost exactly to the dollar to Trey Young. Just let you know. So
yeah, and so I honestly think maybe a Randall swap makes a little bit more sense there. Maybe it's something with Randall and Dillingham for Trey Young, something around there. I don't know if that I haven't done the trade in the Bible as you put it yet. There,
but I'm being very facetious when I do that. But I do know of I have heard stories of execs or team owners that have consulted the NBA trade machine. You would still need another player on Minnesota side to make it happen. It's about $8-9 million short.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure they could find a way to do something around that if they really wanted to. So I just think that maybe makes a little bit more sense for Minnesota. I just think that Gobert, for all his faults and annoyances and maybe shortcomings as a player, he's a floor raiser defensively to a point that we haven't really seen in very many players in NBA history. If you have him on the floor, you're just going to be a pretty good defensive team. And if he leaves, that all of a sudden becomes really. If he leaves and you put Trey Young in the starting lineup, I think that all of a sudden goes from maybe a team that can buckle down on that end of the playoffs to a team that becomes pretty scary on that end with a limited rim protector and Naz Reid at the 5, most likely there. Randall's not great defensively. Trey's not great defensively. It's a lot to put on Jaden McDaniels.
So hear me out on this one, though, because, again, the NBA trade machine is the Bible. If you traded Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, and Mike Conley to Atlanta for Trey Young and Kristaps Porzingis, that matches almost dollar for dollar as well.
I just think you're giving up too much there if you're Minnesota, especially to bank on a guy. Bank on that. A bank on a guy in Porzingis who you just can't bank on, unfortunately. If you knew Porzingis was healthy, I honestly wouldn't really. I'd like it an awful lot because your defense is going to stay at a pretty high level with a good rim protector. Your outside shooting gets a lot better as a team between Trey and Porzingis around Ant. But I just think it would just be hard for me because I think if you give up Gobert, you kill your defensive ceiling in the playoffs. And the Randall deal is hard to make, like you've already found. So.
But Minnesota, how far do they think they can realistically go this year in the playoffs? and with Rudy Gobert, what, 34?
Something
30,
like that.
yeah. His contract is not getting any fresher, and if you're a sixth place team and you just signed Randall to that contract and it's not working out great for you, getting off of it clean like that, for Porzingis in the final year of his contract may be desirable on Minnesota's end.
Ooh, might sneeze here for a second. Sorry.
Oh, watch out.
Yeah, I think it's gone for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying. I just think that takes a little too much away from them identity wise, and I
I
think
understand.
that um, they have gone to the conference finals 2 years in a row. Like they probably can pretty easily talk themselves into, well, if we get a few breaks now. That OKC series last year wasn't particularly close, um, and I don't think the Dallas one was either, unless it's escaping me. So I don't necessarily and now obviously the West around them has gotten so much better, but they have shown to be a matchup problem for Denver. Um, and we'll see against Houston and San Antonio in the playoffs. I just think that maybe could be something that happens in the offseason, but I think for this season, I just don't think they're going to want to blow up their defense that much. But I do
Okay.
think that's an interesting thought because they do a guard next to Ant would make a lot of sense there. I agree, but I just think trading Gobert right now for someone as bad defensively as Trey Young, I just don't think it makes a lot of sense in the West, where all the common denominator of a lot of these teams who are rising outside of maybe Denver and LA, that people think have a chance to go far is like San Antonio, OKC, and Houston are all young and elite defensively, and if you bring in Trey Young, you're not exactly readying yourself to be an elite defensive team. So I'll leave it there.
You would have to have all your baskets into Berenguer,
Yeah,
who has not got much time, but is a in small metrics, very small metrics, an elite shot blocker. And I'll
yeah,
just
he's
leave it at that.
he's an interesting prospect, but that's a lot to. It's one thing to be an interesting prospect. It's another thing to have to come in when Naz Reid gets in foul trouble and SGA's coming at you. It's a different equation.
Good point. Good point, my friend. Just throwing it out there. I think
Yeah,
that's the one team I think that really needs a huge upgrade right there. I mean, the only other team that really that's a winning team right now that really needs a serious upgrade at as far as a playmaker is concerned, it's Houston. And I don't think they're going that far as
yeah.
looking into a Trey Young to change the dynamic on their team, even though he does fit quite a lot of what Houston may need as far as a playmaker in certain situations because you see them. Houston is a team that in black and white on paper should be above the metrics their metrics showcase themselves as a team probably better than what their record indicates. As one of the better best shooting teams in the league, one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league. They can play defense at a pretty good level as well. The only thing is, why are they have the record that they do at 19-10? A lot of that has stemmed from the fact that in clutch situations, they just don't have that sure-handed ball handler to make sure that the right person gets the right ball, the ball at the right time. Trey Young could fit that bill, but again, I just don't think he would be a good enough fit because of what he doesn't bring to you defensively.
Yeah, I just think that especially kind of living through a lot of that 58 win OKC year where a lot of people were saying they need to trade for a big man. What are you doing? And then they lose to Dallas in a lot of ways because they just couldn't match their physicality. But Chet learned a lot that year. You could tell he came back and has been really a lot better rebounder since then. And maybe that would have happened anyway, but I do think it somewhat contributed. I think that Houston just needs to maybe let their young guys in Amen Thompson and Reed Shepard, who are going to be your guards of the future, learn their way through that. And it's maybe going to result in underachieving in the playoffs for 1 year, but I think in the long term, it's a huge positive. And that's kind of honestly why I wanted to do this Trey Young thing is because there's just not really a winner to trade him to. Like there's just I feel like if it's gonna be anyone, I mean Sacramento just screams at you like they just do for it. But other than that, like Minnesota makes sense, but I think they make sense in the offseason. Like I don't necessarily think they make sense right now. We'll see with some other teams. Like if the Clippers go south again, maybe they get younger with Trey instead of James Harden. You're not exactly doing a huge defensive swap there either way. So maybe that's something that could happen where James Harden maybe stabilizes things and makes a little bit more sense offensively in Atlanta, and in LA, and the Clippers get a little younger, but even that is a little bit of a reach. So I just don't know what the team is, and they're clearly putting it out there now to reliable people like Mark Stein. Like they would not be opposed to trading him. So I just think it's pretty interesting to look at the lack of trade landscape for him.
So where would you send him to, or for what would you send him to in Sacramento? Because they do have, he makes 40 around 46. Let's just call it 46, rounded up to $46 million this year to trade. Uh, Domantas Sabonis is around 43.6. Zach LaVine is 47.5. So one of those two players could easily fit into that equation. Is that where you go, or would you go somewhere else as far as doing a package with DeRozan, Monk, or something else?
Yeah. So if I was, now you do got to take into account here. Now, this is something I learned and have really taken advantage of in my fantasy football leagues, is find the bad GMs and trade at them over and over again. And that is what I believe about Sacramento. So
I wish I wish I had that, because I mean I made the playoffs or the championships in all my leagues, but I don't find any suckers anymore.
yeah, no, we're still pretty new into ours, and they're starting to dry up a little bit. But
Okay.
I have done good well doing that so far. But I do think Sacramento falls into that, and I would start with, I just think DeRozan makes some sense in Atlanta offensively with what they want to do. I don't want to go anywhere near LaVine. I wouldn't do it with Sabonis if I was Sacramento. I still am relatively pro Sabonis. And so I think I would do something around DeRozan and Monk's contracts. And then if it makes sense, maybe throw in useless but definitely actually good Keon Ellis, because I think
But you're not interested in Dario Saric and his
no,
0.7 PER?
no, I think his 0.7 PER fits perfectly in Sacramento. I think they can
In warm-ups, as I saw in the last game. So, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So, and I honestly think then you're probably looking at long term. Like Keon Ellis makes a lot of sense with what they want to do in Atlanta. He can handle the ball a little bit. He's a good outside shooter. He reminds me a little bit of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who has had a lot of success there. So I think that's what I would do. And I don't know if that works salary wise. Like I said, I haven't really had a chance to do these myself, but something around Sabonis, Monk, and Keon Ellis for Trey Young, I think doesn't really make sense for Sacramento, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't do it. And I do think that it makes sense for Atlanta.
So that makes about 64, almost 65 million, what you're talking about as far as that those three players. I know Keon Ellis is, like everybody, like we've talked about before on this show, Keon Ellis seemingly is viewed more favorably by everyone outside of Sacramento than in Sacramento. He had a really good game on the weekend, didn't have one against the Lakers. From one week to the next, he doesn't even know probably if he's going to be playing or not, because he's been out of the rotation at certain times in recent games as well. So if you were to do that, you probably would have to add on. Is it time to move on from Risache? That's what I want to ask you. Risache, that's been talked about on our previous night's post game. People are talking about, is Risache available as the last year's number one pick?
I don't know that I'd be super into. Where'd you see 64 million? I'm on the ESPN trade machine, which has
no, Sabonis, Monk, and Ellis make combined 64.7.
Oh no, see, I no Sabonis in there. I would do.
Oh,
DeRozan,
I'm sorry.
DeRozan, Monk, and Ellis, and on my ESPN, that works.
Okay. That
those
works,
are almost the exact same. Like that's like $200,000 difference.
I clicked on the wrong guy. My apologies on that. So yes, DeRozan, Monk, and Ellis do that. But getting back to Risache,
yeah,
I think he is available more than people think, because again, he's just proven himself to be just an average player on an average team, and right now it does not look to be getting much higher.
Yeah. So the interesting thing for Atlanta is, now this would be a pretty big change, but there was also reporting from Chris Haynes that they are interested in Anthony Davis. In that trade, the Mavs would want Risache back. So I'm a lot more pro Anthony Davis than you are. I also didn't have to live the Anthony Davis experience at any point in my life, and I am not envious of you for having to do so. But
what is his current position?
He's a 4. He's a power
No,
forward.
no. What is his current position as far as status? I should have said.
Oh, I'm sure he's hurt.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would depend on the price with him, but I do think that that'd be worth looking into on its own, or even after this Trey Young deal. But I don't. I just think that I just have found in my basketball mind, I really always want to go towards these kind of big 3-and-D idealistic wings. So that's a Dorian Finney-Smith type. That's Tamani Kamara. That's um, Jabari Smith. I just think that it's worth it to keep these guys because when you do build a winning team, they just clearly make a lot of sense for that type of team. And so I don't think I'd just be rushing to move on from Risa Shea, but there was some reporting that makes it look like maybe they'd be willing to move off of him. So if that's the case, you definitely ask about it if you're Sacramento. Like you definitely maybe, well, do you want to throw them in? Or at least I would. But again, they're Sacramento. They're just really bad at existing. So I don't know if they would or not. But I mean, I think having a future wing tandem of him and Keegan Murray actually be relatively exciting because they're not great either one, but I do think they're both conducive to winning if you're able to do any winning culture stuff around him. But if AD wants to go to Atlanta or Atlanta wants AD, I do think that he makes a lot of sense next to Cooper Flagg, and I think that Dallas would really reap some rewards from that down the line.
Again, it's not reflective of Risa Shea himself. It's just reflective of that entire draft class.
Oh yeah,
because you can't say he's a bust because that entire draft, there's no standout players. So again, I said he's an average player. He's proven out to be an average player on an average team. And again, he is at the top of the list. And the fact that you cannot say that he's a draft bust because the fact that, okay, where else in the draft were you going to pick? Who else were you going to pick instead of him? Maybe you could pick one person or maybe two, but those players that you would pick above him aren't leaps and bounds ahead of Zachary Richer based off of what that entire draft class was all about from what we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically in that class right now, it's only Castle. And Castle's awesome, but at the time, he just wasn't really going to go first. That just never really felt like a real possibility. So,
but that's it. After Castle, where do you go?
Yeah. Like you can, Klingon's good, but like that's not a number your one overall pick either. I mean, he's like he'll be a rotation big. Like that's,
AJ Mitchell will be a rotation player.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really blame the Hawks. I mean, that was just such a terrible, and we knew that was a bad draft going in. It's borne out that way. They're lucky that Castle has ended up being so good because without him, this would really be a disastrous class. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. I think that Risa Shea will end up being a pretty valuable rotation wing because they just don't make 6'9" guys who can shoot and defend they just don't grow on trees. Everyone wants those guys, and he's young and maybe a little underwhelming for where he went in the draft.
Maybe he can mature like Wiggins has.
Yeah, exactly. And like Wiggins really helped the championship team, right? And like I think, and they're in a winning situation. Wiggins is a really useful player. So I agree. I think that makes sense. But really, now that we've done, I think this DeRozan, Malik Monk, and Keon Ellis for Trey Young thing, it just reeks of Sacramento Kings to me. Just really just has a pungent smell of Kings. So I almost expect to see that happen at the deadline now, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. They clearly want to trade him. I think it's weird that they're displaying or like putting out that they maybe want to move off Risa Shea as much as like, if someone calls and they're like, well, would you put in Risa Shea? You don't say no, but like, I don't think you want to be like, hey, by the way, we'll trade him. That seems a little over the line for someone who I do think has a promising future, maybe not as a star, but as a role player.
All I'll say is this, the decisions will have to be made probably in the near future from both Atlanta and LA, whether or not they want to commit long-term to Trey Young and Austin Reaves, because they are in a very similar situation because of their deficiencies, but also what they give to you on the offensive end.
Yeah.
And you'll have to go ahead and commit to that. So we'll see whether you want to go ahead and commit. You just want to take the money off the books and let them walk away for nothing, or try to get something for value, even if it's not dollar for dollar. And Reaves is a lot harder to
Yeah.
get commensurate value because his contract is so low. Because I get this all the time. Austin Reeves for this player, Austin Reeves for that player, Austin. That problem is with Austin Reeves for almost any decent player in the books, not named Herb Jones, that might help the Lakers. It's just hard because you have to attach other things to it, and the Lakers, outside of expiring contracts, do not have a whole lot of other things to attach to it, which we'll wait and see how that works out. So I don't know if you'll get a commensurate fair trade for dollar or value for value for if you traded Trey Young or Austin Reeves at this point. But I think you might want to
Yeah.
do it if you don't want to commit to that kind of money and let them walk away for nothing.
I just wouldn't even think twice, and I'd give it to Reaves. I think Reaves is really dynamic. Trey Young is dynamic, but he has to have the ball. He's just not a very. He's never in college. He wasn't like he's just not a very good off-ball player. Reaves has shown to be a pretty good offensive co-star to Luka, and they're never going to be that good defensively. But I
That's
just
the
would,
problem though,
yeah,
Caleb.
and
And
I
as I deal
understand.
with them and I deal with an audience on a daily basis that understands that if we commit to 5 years of the brofest, but that is Austin and Luca, because they're such good friends now off the court, you commit to probably the worst defensive backcourt in the entire NBA for 5 years to come. And the question I have is, can Rob Pelinka, or if he's ousted, another GM, build enough assets around those two guys to build a winning formula going forward defensively? And that is the major question I'm not sure I could answer in a proper fashion.
Yeah, I mean, with any Luka Doncic team, you're going to have to find a lot of really good defensive players, right? Like he's just, I mean, but the thing that I would argue to why you should keep Reeves is we've seen the blueprint with Kyrie and Luka just 2 years ago. Like they just made the finals 2 years ago, and I mean, you got to. And it wasn't like the other guys on that team were like really difficult to acquire. It's not like it was some unforeseen out of left field move. It was like a first for Gafford and a first for PJ. Like it's doable moves, you know? And you already have a guy who I think really fits that in Rui Hachimura. So I don't know. I think it would be, you at least got to re-sign him to keep the asset alive to me. And I just don't think you can let him walk. But with Trey, I just think Trey is so now has like a sample size. The Hawks just were better without him this year. Everyone feared it that he was going to come back and they were going to fall off, and then it did. And now we're just on a multi-year sample size of he's your best player. Your offense becomes pretty one-dimensional, and your defense is just never going to be good. Like he's just Luka is bad defensively. I fully I understand, but he's at least like to give him some like honestly that Mav series he did okay on SGA just because he's so big and like if he wants to positionally be somewhere, he's big enough to like be in the way. Which
But in that finals, his defense was
oh
one of the marquee reasons why they didn't get
yeah
the job done against the Celtics. And I'm just going back to what the Lakers are. Their top 3 players are also their top 3 worst
yeah
defenders, which is a problem. As you saw on Christmas night, both Luca and Austin, as much as I love them on the offensive end, were traffic cones on
oh
the
yeah
defensive end that night. And you're going to have games like that. So I put in, like you said, offensively, it really could work out well for the Lakers. And I will not take away from that. And the fact that, again, you have to give Roston all the credit in the world for building himself, and people forget this. Again, like I said earlier, as an undrafted player to even get to this point,
yeah
this is about the maximum an undrafted player can do, can
oh yeah
be, to put themselves in this position to do so. But there is such vitriol and hate towards Austin Reeves right now because of how poor it is defensively. And he is getting a lot of the heat as the third guy because they know they can't get rid of LeBron for at least
mm-hmm.
until the end of the year because it just is what it is. And they know that Luka's here to stay for a long time to come, no matter how much they do not like the way he commits to the defensive end. It is what it is. So he gets the brunt of a lot of that vitriol and hate. And I can't say I blame them because if your top 3 guys are also your top 3 worst defenders, it makes it very hard in a playoff matchup to have faith that the Lakers can go anywhere in the postseason.
Well, this season they're just not going to. Like they're just not as good as OKC. They're not as good as San Antonio. They're not as good as Denver, and they're not as good as Houston. Like they just aren't on that level of team. And then Minnesota, I mean, they're back-to-back Western Conference Finals team. So I just don't think. I mean, I told you that I think on our preview. I just have never really been under the impression that this Lakers team this year was really a postseason. I just think this Lakers foundation cannot really be good until LeBron is off their books. Just because Luka is one of the 5 best players, and whatever you think of him, he's at worst the 5th best player in the world, and I think at worst the 4th more likely. And Reaves is turned into he's an elite offensive player who's a liability defensively, but on it, like you can have 2 somewhat deficient defensive guards, and I wasn't trying to say earlier like Luka's a good defender because he's not, but I'm just saying like what he has over Trey Young is he can at least be like big in moments where it's like positionally, if he would go somewhere, he can get in the way. Like Trey Young
he
can't
is
even
6'8".
Yeah, like Trey Young can't even go get in the way. It's like if he's standing there, it's like a bug in a windshield. Like it's just, he can't do anything. And so I don't know. I think I'd commit to Reaves just because even if maybe it doesn't work, he would then give him a contract where he is so good offensively, you can probably trade him. But he would also it's an interesting conversation for sure.
How much would you commit? That's the other question. Because
He's gonna walk.
as I've said on the show many times, if I'm his agent, I see him top 10 in the All-Star voting. He's got All-Star like I'm going to ask for the max. I know that's not what I would pay him, not anywhere near what I would pay him, but that's what I'm asking for him if I walk in that door with him with the Lakers or with anyone else.
Yeah, and I just think that someone's worth, and this is the interesting thing with Trey Young. Even I think someone's worth what they can become an unrestricted free agent and get. I think that's a good way to say what someone's worth is. And if Trey Young hits unrestricted free agency, I don't know that. Like maybe a team because they need a box office guy would give him a max. Like I just don't know if he'd get a max as an unrestricted free agent. I think some team would max Reaves, and it might be a bad team like the Wizards or someone like that. But I do think he could go out and command the max. And so, if I was the Lakers, I would just do it and keep the asset alive. And maybe it ends up coming back to bite you. But I just think that keeping the asset alive is worth re-signing him instead of like a maybe. And I get. When you're the Lakers, a maybe is worth a maybe for any other team in the NBA because of the history of their ability to sign free agents and pry guys away. But I do still think it's going to be really tough to bank on someone better than Austin Reaves coming available and being able for a team with limited assets to acquire them.
I'll just say this. You talked about with Trey Young, an extended sample size. Atlanta has had a chance to see that now, what it looks like. The Lakers will have that extended sample size for a month now, and we'll see what happens this time next month. What the record is during the absence of Austin Reaves and where they're at in the Western Conference standings by the time he comes back. And you might have a answer, and we might both have an answer to our questions on whether you commit to him long term in that month. So we will see what happens, my friend. But before we head on out, I wanted to go ahead and talk about a couple of teams. I know it's not the Halloween season right now. It's a little past that, but zombies coming back to life. And I have 2 zombie teams in mind. One is playing right now against Charlotte, and that is the Milwaukee Bucks, who just got Giannis Antetokounmpo back, and it led to a victory in their last game. And then also the Los Angeles Clippers, who have been playing very well of late, have several wins over some really good teams, including Detroit, Houston, and the Lakers. The records are still not sparkling. With the Clippers, it's 10-21, but they have won 4 in a row. With Milwaukee, it's 13-19. Again, they just got Giannis back, who makes all the world difference. Do you believe that these teams are ready for a remarkable turnaround, my friend, in both of those conferences?
I believe it with the Bucks as long as Giannis stays healthy, because I think if Giannis is playing and you're in the East, you're going to be in the playoffs and you have a chance to win around. He's just that level of player. And on the Clippers, I think if Kawhi Leonard's healthy, they have a chance to be back in that play-in mix. But I just can't bank on Kawhi Leonard being healthy. I mean, it's like that. Like Giannis is usually healthy. Kawhi Leonard usually isn't healthy. That's just kind of what it comes down to me. Um, Harden's playing really well, and they're doing this without Zubats. But I just think that the West is really brutal, and it's really hard to do this over an extended period of time with players who are injury prone at this stage in their career. And they honestly were putting a really heavy workload on Harden early in the season, which leads me to maybe some concern of down the road what could happen to him just in terms of wear and tear. I hope not. He's a aging one of the best players of my generation, but um, I don't know. So I think I believe in the Bucks more than the Clippers in terms of like, are they going to make the play? I mean, I guess what rising from the dead mean? What does that mean? Like, for I'll just say it like it means making the playoffs, and I think the Bucks will make the playoffs. I don't think the Clippers will.
I might be on the other end of that because the fact that if you saw Kawhi yesterday, prime
Oh
Kawhi
my
showed up.
goodness. Yeah.
He was just amazing in the limited number of minutes I saw him in that third quarter yesterday. I got the worst. My favorite color, one of my favorite colors is orange, but I'm sorry, it does not look good on whatever shoe store slash bus sign type uniforms that they had on yesterday in the Clippers land, but that looked horrible. Um, I will say that though, Kawhi, 55 points yesterday, looked really, really
Unbelievable.
good.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could get that Kawhi on a regular basis more often, they might be a team that, by come February, might be a team that's now at that eighth, ninth, possibly even seventh position in the Western Conference, and could be that team that nobody wants to play heading into the playoffs. And they've even in recent days resurrected Brook Lopez, who was just
Yeah.
deader than a doornail and came back to life. He had a huge game in Portland. I saw that one on
Yeah.
Amazon Prime. That was just amazing to see him just chuck up threes like crazy. And again, if their season starts to get a little better, I'm saying they're not going to be a seller to sell off all those veterans, and they might want to stick it out just that much longer.
Yeah. To me, I just think with the Clippers, it just straight up comes down to health. If they can stay healthy, they, I think, can sneak into that maybe end of the playoffs in the West. But I just don't believe in them to stay healthy.
Okay.
It's as simple as that for me.
I can't blame you. I can't blame you. And if you're an Oklahoma City fan, you're rooting for those calf strains and those groin strains and those contusions. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But it is, of course, Calif Poncy. Calif, are you working on anything before we head on out?
I'm thinking of putting something out here in the next week. I have a few ideas rattling around, but I have not put anything out since my Clippers piece. But I do think I will have something before too long coming out. By the next time we talk, I hope to have something new out. So we'll see what that is. Like I said, I have a few different ideas going on. But other than that, I would just say keep an eye on what Adam is doing at the Suave Report. The guy I work with, who's great and does a lot of post game. He always does a post game video for OKC. That's always interesting if you have an interest in maybe the more specific happenings of the OKC games instead of just looking at the scoreboard and saying, oh, they lost to only the Spurs or they beat whoever else they're playing by 20. Those are kind of the two results they have had this season for the most part. So I would say always keep an eye on what he's putting out. And then I'll have a story sometime in the next, hopefully the next week, definitely the next couple weeks, I'll have a new story out.
Well, there you go. Once again, it is Caleb Poncy. Please go ahead and make sure you got him taken care of as far as what you're checking out with what he's doing today at the Suave Report. He's got a great article on the Clippers, especially that it was very timely as far as what happened with Chris Paul, and then also what he's doing with the New Century Press as well. Caleb, I know that you're in the middle of a Christmas vacation, doing your holiday road thing right there. But I appreciate you taking some time out for me. And again, I'm wishing you and the family a blessed 2026.
Oh, you as well. It was great. It was no problem. I had a great time, and I'll see you next week.
You got it, my friend. Much to discuss next week, I'm sure. I don't
Yeah.
know. Those all-star voting numbers, what do they even mean anymore? They flashed them up today on Twitter, and I'm like, and so
Shai
what?
Gilgeous-Alexander is not fourth in anything in the NBA. Not to mention that was, as a Thunder-leaning guy, that was outrageous. But the perils of being in Oklahoma City, I suppose.
And then if you voted on Christmas, you got a 3 times bonus or 4 times. That is just
who knows.
What does it mean, anyways, with this new format they're doing? Again,
Yeah.
I just hurts my head And I'll just leave it at that. Next week, though, I do want to ask your thoughts on expansion. I don't know if we
No, yeah.
really have gone into expansion, and I want to discuss that because of the recent comments that were made by Adam Silver at the NBA Cup, and I want to hear your thoughts on that. So, once again, it is Caleb Poncy. It is me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening. Truly appreciate you stopping by the Lakers Fast Break podcast, and also as well what we do every week, as we always provide you some really good NBA observations.